Hello loves, welcome to today's video. I had a very successful September and managed to read 32 books, 5,410 pages, and 115.68 hours of audiobooks. So it was a very successful month for me. I did manage to catch back up on my reading goals, so I'm quite happy with that. So today I'm going to be giving you the rundown of what I read in September, starting with the lowest rating and making our way up to the best of the month. While I did complete 32 books, I am only going to talk about 27 of them today because 5 of them are for a vlog that is coming up in October. I don't want to have any spoilers, and also I haven't rated them yet because they are going to have a little bit different of a rating system than what I usually use. The lowest rating I gave out this month was a 1 star. I think this is the lowest rating I have given out all year. Faithless Volume 3 by Brian Azzarello. This is a graphic novel about a artist who has like witchy mystical powers and ends up in a deal with the devil to make their art career explode. First volume, I was bought into the concept. The second one seemed a little off in terms of the focus on relationship of a certain nature. The last one was just so much gratuitous orgies. Every chapter would just start with demons and humans and multiple things everywhere. It was so gratuitous. The plot got so convoluted because why are we switching back and forth between these? And it did not have a satisfying ending in the least. One for Volume 3 of Faithless. As a series overall, I cannot recommend it, and it had such promise. Another one that's like my lowest rated novel of the year, 1.5 to the Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This was about a few different timelines. You have one that's going on like between World War I and World War II, I think, about this woman who has been forced by her brother into an arranged marriage, so instead she runs away to Paris and then also to Ireland. Also, she was in an asylum at some point. And in the modern day, we have this man who found this letter saying that there was supposedly this bookshop at this one address, but no one seems to actually remember it, or it's been lost to time. The woman that's like currently living in that house and has escaped from her abusive husband. None of these characters had any personalities outside of 1, liking books, or 2, the trauma that they had in their past. And the main character, who's in the modern day, the woman who's escaping her abusive husband, can't read, but also is getting like excerpts of a book in her dreams that she gets tattooed on her skin, and it was just so dumb. It kept name dropping famous authors for no fucking reason, other than to prove that the author knows authors, I guess, because they didn't add anything to the plot. I hated this. It felt so wanky to be like, oh yes, and James Joyce was there. Like, okay, that was my worst book of the year, and I only read it because of book club. Next book at 2.25 stars, which is normally what my lowest would be for the month if I hadn't read the other 2. The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. This was kind of a second chance for Stephen Graham Jones because I DNF'd one of his books last month, and this one disappointed me. The writing style on it was so weird. So this is about a high school where there's a killer around based on Michael Jackson. It's like the Beat It killer or something. And each of the girls in the high school is like competing to be the final girl. It was written like someone was describing a script to you, and not in the way that like horror movie has script reads where the actors are like saying their lines. No, it was just like the scene, high school, Sarah walks up to the bed, and it was so incomprehensible. I didn't figure out who any of the characters were by the end because all of them were described the exact same way and had no personalities, honestly. Total miss for me. I don't know if I'm gonna give Stephen Graham Jones another chance because that's 2 whiffs for me from Stephen Graham Jones. Okay, we have 2 books at a 2.75 star. The first is 3 Moments of an Explosion by China Millville. I read this because Keanu Reeves mentioned it was his favorite China Millville. I did enjoy some of the stories. There was one early on where like these like snowy clouds like overtake everything, and that one was pretty interesting. Most of them were just kind of average though, and it ended up at a 2.75. There were definitely some interesting concepts, just a lot of them didn't really go anywhere interesting, so 2.75 for that collection of stories. The next at 2.75 is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. There are two women. One has like a successful podcast where she will talk to women who have gotten themselves out of bad positions and are doing successful things. There's this other woman who's like average suburban mom, and she's just not really happy with how her life is going. So they are at a restaurant for their birthdays and realize that they're birthday twins. And the suburban mom one goes to the podcast lady and is like, have you ever done a podcast of someone who wants to change their life and the process behind that? The podcast lady's like, no, but that might be a good idea. And then it kind of unravels from there as the mom character just kind of does some really unhinged things. I was kind of enjoying this for the majority of it, and then it lost me in the last minute plot twist. I have an issue with plot twists that make you feel like reading the build-up was a waste of time, and that's how I felt with this one. It's the Life of Pi problem to me. That's what I call it in my head, because Life of Pi was the first one that did that to me. Spoilers, I will put timestamp if you want to skip past. So basically you build up all of this, that the suburban mom is on Hinge, probably killed her husband, and then it turns out it was her daughter the whole time. And like, okay, cool, but none of that was properly foreshadowed, and you spent, I listened to an audiobook, hours and hours building up how unhinged this mother was, only to have it be her daughter the whole time. And we could have had a better build up to that and not just like pulled the rug out at the last minute for something that wasn't properly foreshadowed in the rest of the book. Didn't like that one. It got a 2.75. Next, at 3.25 stars, we have She's a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran. This is about a girl whose parents are going through kind of a rocky time, and she prefers staying with her mother in the United States, but she has to go to Vietnam to spend the summer with her father as he's fixing up this old house and turning it into a hotel. I liked some of the spookier elements of this book. It had a little bit of kind of like gothic horror. Most of the time I'm just like in the head of a teenager having teenager problems, and I was not a big fan of that. That is one of the risks when you choose to read a YA, is sometimes the character is going to have teenager thoughts, and that just wasn't for me. If you are a teenager, you might relate to it a bit more. I do think that some of the horror elements were really interesting, just overall didn't connect to the characters as much, so this one got a 3.25. Another 3.25 is The Center by Aisha Manazar Siddiqui. This is about a woman with her boyfriend who just has like this uncanny ability to learn languages in like 2 weeks, and she finally like convinces him to tell her how he does it, and he goes to this center where you basically get isolated from everything else and you are immersed in the language, and they have some proprietary process that lets you learn any language in 2 weeks. But it has a little bit of a dark side to it. This one I got a 3.25 for because I guessed fairly early on what that twist was going to be, and I was kind of disappointed that it didn't end up being a different twist, because I thought that the twist that it did was literally the most boring option you could have chosen. And that's what they went with. And this book is just a lot of the main character complaining about literally everything. You agreed to do this process where you can't have your phone, but you're going to spend the entire 2 weeks that you're there complaining that you can't have your phone to learn an entire language in 2 weeks. You can do it without your phone for 2 weeks. Oh, you learned this language and now you have to actually use this language for your job. Oh no, let's complain about that again. Oh my god, it's so annoying. The main character is like intentionally irritating, I think, because they do have like a blowout with her boyfriend at one point where they're like sniping back and forth at each other, and he makes basically that same point. You're never happy with anything. It found it intolerable to read from. So the center got 3.25 because there was an interesting concept there. They just went in the most boring of directions. And the final 3.25 is Fang Fiction by Kate Stayman London. In this book, there is this series about vampires, and our two main characters are like absolutely obsessed with this book series. They like have a theme party on it. They really bond over their mutual love of this book. And they were roommates, and one day in the night, one of them like abandons the apartment and is like, I can't stay here anymore, I'm leaving, and she doesn't tell her roommate why. Years later, one of the main characters is working at this hotel. Someone comes in and she's like, that looks suspiciously like the main character from the book. And it turns out that the books are real, they're not fictional, and vampires exist. So she has to help the main character from her favorite book series like get reunited with her brother. And I was enjoying this one in the beginning. It was giving me like 2008 vampire craze, all the cheesy teen novels I wanted to read, but with slightly more mature characters. I will say that they're like PhD master's age. So while it is adult fiction, it's like kind of new adult because they're like very early 20s. I thought that the world building of the vampire lore was really interesting, but this one has a very serious topic that is discussed in it, and that just felt really weird tonally to have like, ooh, fun, vampires are real and my favorite fictional character is needing my help, to then have the very serious topic of SA in that, and it just tonally shifted very quickly back and forth between the two, and that really threw me off. If you are a fan of cheesy vampire fiction, I think you might like this, but just be warned that there are some very serious topics discussed in it. Next, we have the books that I gave a 3.5 to. The first is An Unexpected Peril by Deanna Raybourn. This is the 6th book in the Veronica Speedwell series. Veronica Speedwell is a lepidopterist, a lady living in the Victorian times. She's very science-minded, and she is in this slow burn relationship with Stoker, and they solve crimes together. So 3.5 for this one. It was much better than the last one I read. In this one, Veronica and Stoker are helping set up a conference for people who like to climb mountains, and someone who recently tried to climb a certain part of the Alps and died, and then the princess of that small nation has gone missing, and because Veronica bears a striking resemblance, I wonder why, to this princess, they have her be undercover as the princess so nobody finds that she's missing, while Veronica is trying to investigate to find out where the princess went. Also, they suspect that the woman who died mountain climbing was murdered. So 3.5. I really like the mystery in this one, and I did have a good time. I just think Veronica Speedwell series is that average mystery series for me. It's not my favorite thing of all time, but I do enjoy it. 3.5 is still a good rating. It's just not like mind-blowing new favorite type thing. So 3.5 to this one. I enjoyed the mystery. Next 3.5 is Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. This is a short story collection, mostly focusing on the horror aspects of womanhood. Most of these just kind of fell in the middle range for me, which is how it ended up at 3.5. There was one standout for me in this collection about a girl whose father remarried. The woman he remarries has a wolf that she treats like a daughter. So her new stepsister is a full-grown wolf. And I really enjoyed that one. I had fun with that one, but a lot of the other ones just kind of ended up in the middle. I do enjoy Julia Armfield's writing. They're all impeccably written. Just some of the concepts gripped me more than others, so it ends up at a 3.5. So that the next 3.5 is Dead Ever After by Charlene Harris. I have finished the Sookie Stackhouse series because it is the last book in a 13-book series. A lot of concepts and characters that I can't fully go in on because it's 13 books worth of stuff we're trying to wrap up. In this one, someone is killed and Sookie is blamed. Little bit of a shakeup from either Jason or the Soups getting blamed. Someone from an earlier novel is killed and dumped at Merlotte's. Sookie is accused of the killing because a scarf from her drawer was used, and all of the supernatural friends that Sookie has made along the way band together to try and figure out who actually killed this woman and get Sookie free from jail and off of the hook for this murder. It was really nice to kind of see everyone we've met along the way and everybody that Sookie has become friends with. Now I will go into spoilers if you don't want spoilers for this series. Eric's like not in this like at all, and as someone who loved Eric in the show, a little disappointing to me. And the fact that she ends up with Sam like makes sense for book Sookie. Like, I think that makes sense, but it wouldn't be my choice. So, I'm now finished this series. Yay! I don't have to read any of these anymore. Next 3.5 is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. So, in this one, overnight one day, everybody over the age of 22 finds a box on their doorstep that contains a piece of string. And after a couple weeks, they realize that that string indicates the length of one's life. So if you have a short string, you're gonna die early. If you have a long string, you have a long life. This book focuses on quite a few different characters whose lives are interconnected in different ways and how they choose to live their lives in the wake of these strings. Do they look at it? Do they have a short string? Do they have a long string? And how do they cope with the length of their string or the unknown of what their string is? I give this one a 3.5. I did overall enjoy it, but I thought it got a little hokey at some places, like the Midnight Library effect, where it's like, yes, life is worth living, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but also I don't find that to be a particularly compelling moral of a story. I did really enjoy some of the characters in this one though, particularly the teacher and the pen pal that she ends up having with someone in a short string support group. I was devastated about the doctor, but some of the other storylines I didn't connect to as much as the others, so overall it gets a 3.5. I think it does have kind of an interesting concept, and this will be like a book club favorite, which it says perfect for book clubs in the review right there because of the discussion one can have of like, would you look at your string? What if you had a short string? What if you had a long string? And to answer the question, I wouldn't look, because even if I have a long string, it doesn't mean that I can do anything particularly risky with my life, because I could still risk having a long life of, you know, being paralyzed because I jumped off a cliff. I'm still alive, but I'm hurt, so like, I'm not looking. Whatever happens, happens, my dudes. So that was The Measure. Good for a book club, but if you're not a fan of the like cheesy life is worth living narrative, you're not gonna like this very much. Next 3.5 is Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. This is about kind of two main characters who entered into a haunted house and have different recollections as to what happened in the haunted house, but that was the non-interesting part of this plotline. The interesting part of this book for me was that both of these characters kind of have a history of being like far right, red pill kind of manosphere people. But one of them continues to have that ideology, and one of them realizes that they are trans and has transitioned. You follow kind of these two main characters dealing with the bigotry that they had in their past and either continuing to be a bigot or trying to deconstruct some of the harmful ideas they had about other people, and then also kind of the self-hatred since they used to be very anti-trans and now they have transitioned. I think I could have done without the like haunted house narrative in this one. It seemed a bit convoluted. It really seemed to start in one place where it was focusing on like the alt-right pipeline and how particularly teenage boys can fall down that hole very quickly, but then pivoted to being about a haunted house, and I was kind of like, whoa, what? I was interested in that, and that is a horrifying thing. Some of the stuff that was written in those early chapters, which like, yeah, would realistically be on the internet, absolutely horrifying to read, but then the haunted house stuff happened. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I wanted a haunted house narrative, I could read a million other books. I was really interested in the look at the alt-right pipeline, at internalized transphobia, deconstructing from all of that, and yeah, this got a 3.5. It could have been higher if it had kept that original kind of feeling of it. Also, just like, warning, a lot of discussion about kink in this, and like very specifically like the fetishization of trans women, the fetishization of like sissification. So definitely some mature themes in this one, and be prepared for some transphobia, because that's kind of the theme of the book for a while until we get to the haunted house thing. Next 3.5 is The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. It's about a woman who's single. She comes home from like a hen party, because it's set in the UK, and she's like, a husband there? She's like, hold on, I'm not married. And then the husband goes into the attic for whatever reason, and then a different husband comes down, and she realizes that every time she sends her like husband into the attic, she gets to move to a parallel dimension, essentially, where her life is different, she has a different husband, and has also been a change in circumstance of how she got to the life where she ended up marrying that person, and she just keeps switching through husbands. This one got a 3.5. I thought the concept was really interesting. I was really enjoying that aspect of it. This is another book that kind of felt like Midnight Library, kind of, where it's switching through different lives and all the decisions you've made, and they can have good consequences, they can have bad consequences. She has like, some of the husbands are abusive, and some of them, her niece and nephew, don't exist. So it was similar to Midnight Library, which kind of was at its detriment, because I'm like, I kind of already read a story like this, which was the Midnight Library, and I was kind of hoping this one would have a unique twist on the end, but it didn't really have a very satisfactory ending for me. I was like, that's how you chose to end this? Oh, okay. So 3.5 for The Husbands. It's not really a book for me. If you do like the Midnight Library, like, love it, you like that kind of story, you might like this one as well, but just for me, it was alright. Next 3.5 is Their Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. This is a YA series. It's the first in the series about this family, and every year they run like a scholarship competition, and there's this woman who, due to a fight she got into, has her offers to all of her colleges rescinded, and she gets an offer to compete in this game with the condition that, like, we could get you your acceptance to Yale back. And when she gets there, it turns out that they're not just fighting for a scholarship, they're fighting for like the hand in marriage to marry into the super rich family. And because that's the prize, some of the other competitors are like willing to go to some very extreme lengths to win, including murder. So this is like The Bachelor meets Battle Royale, basically. I thought the concept was really interesting. I really enjoyed the plot of it. It is just written for a bit of a younger audience, so things like writing style, etc. got like a 3. So it ends up at a 3.5 just because it was average. I still would recommend it if you like kind of deadly games, if you like eat the rich narratives, definitely a good one, and I will be picking up the sequel. Next, we have one book at a 3.75 rating, and that was Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. Again, a Bachelor storyline. There is like a fake Bachelor show that's down to 4 contestants, and it's the destination episode, so they are flying to this island in the Pacific Northwest, I think, and you follow the 4 contestants on this show and the various reasons that they're competing on it for the hand of this like dude bro tech influencer. Also, you follow one of the producers on this show, so you switch POVs between them, you get to know them. I thought the characters were written really uniquely. It was very easy to tell who was who, so I did enjoy the character writing in this. And then Bigfoot shows up. So this one starts out as like cheesy book about The Bachelor and then quickly pivots to being a horror about Bigfoot. And this got a 3.75 because that tonal shift, very abrupt. very much like, oh, we're gonna have a date night, and then we're gonna camp, and then in the morning we're gonna do the rose ceremony, and then Bigfoot shows up and just people. I had fun with this. Like, it was a fun book. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read, but it was fun. It's fairly short. I think it's only like 230 something pages. So if you're looking for something short and you like horror, it does get gory in here, so warning on that, but pick it up. It was a fun time. Samantha Wants to Cuddle got a 3.75. Next, at 4 stars, we have This Is Where We Talk Things Out by Caitlin Marceau. This is a novella about a woman who has like a really toxic relationship with her mother, but she's not ready to fully commit to going to no contact, so she does kind of sometimes indulge her mother. And her father has recently died, so she agrees to go on this like camping trip at a cabin with her mother. And then it turns into a horror novel. So her mother basically does some very unhinged things. If you have a mother who is like emotionally abusive, this is a novel that might hit you quite hard. Any single thing that she does that her mother sees as wrong, like, I don't know, wanting to wear her own clothing is like, you don't love me, you've always hated me. I thought this was really well written. It was fairly short, so it didn't get too much into depth. The plot twist I managed to guess pretty early on. So not as much of a like shocking twist as I would hope for, so it ends up at a 4 star. I did have a good time with this. Second 4 star is Alfred Hitchcock Presents More Stories Not for the Nervous. This is a short story collection with Alfred Hitchcock's name slapped on it. I would like to give credit to Robert Arthur, who actually is the one who curated this collection. This is a short story collection that was published in 1965, so it's a little bit of an older horror, and I went into this expecting them not to be like that scary or really good, just because they're kind of dated, and there is kind of the shifting of cultural values as to what we find scary, but these were quite good. I did really enjoy these. The one where like a man ends up getting trapped in a snow globe. One where these like elderly women suspect that the niece and nephew that they've moved in with are trying to kill them. If you like Alfred Hitchcock movies, these very much have the similar feeling of suspense to them. So I ended up quite liking this. It's an anthology, so each of the stories got a separate ranking, and the fact that that averaged up at a 4 means that there's more hits in this than misses, so probably not an easy book to find since I just found it at a random used bookstore, but I ended up really enjoying this, and I will definitely be combing my used bookstores for other ones in this series because this was a lot of fun. Okay, 4.25 stars. The first is Linghun by A. Jiang. This is a translated horror book about this town where each of the houses lets you connect with one of your dead relatives. Like, ghosts show up, but only on these specific houses in this specific town. So there is obviously a lot of competition for when one of these houses is on the market. This follows a teenager whose parents have just inherited one of these homes because they want to reconnect with her dead brother. She can't really see her brother as much as her parents can, and she's kind of just annoyed with her parents that they've uprooted her whole life to reconnect with her brother who's dead. And then there's also a teenage boy in this town whose parents are, I can't remember what the word for it is, like squatters essentially. When every one of these homes goes for auction, it goes crazy. So people just like sit on the lawns of these houses hoping that the homeowners, instead of doing to auction, will just like do a direct transfer to them. So you follow him and like his struggles with his parents, just basically squatting on people's lawns 24/7 trying to get a house to connect with a dead relative. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really creepy. It got some very violent times when one of these houses went on auction, and it was short, but I really enjoyed it. So that got a 4.25. Next 4.25 is Slewfoot by Brom. There's going to be a lot of Brom coming up on this list. So Slewfoot is about our main character, Abatha, who is like a farmer's wife in Puritan times. Her husband dies, and her husband's brother is like, hey, you technically owe me money for that land, so unless you have a good enough harvest to pay me off by the end of the fall, I'm gonna repossess the land and like sell you off, basically. So Abatha is trying to figure out how to do this when she meets Slewfoot, a demonic creature. And this demonic creature has like no memory of who he used to be before he woke up very recently. So Abatha is like trying to get a good harvest, and she ends up making basically a deal with this demon, so she also has to try and like not get caught for witchcraft. I really love Brom's writing. He's originally an artist, so he has a really vivid way of describing scenery because he just kind of gets the nuances. But plot-wise, I wish that the pacing had been a little bit different on this one. She gets accused of witchcraft like 2/3 through the book, and then everything that happened after that, I really wish had been longer so I could have reveled in it, but the build up to that just felt a little bit long for me, that it didn't feel like an adequate payoff. But overall, I enjoyed it. It was still really good. I still really enjoyed it when it did happen. I just wish I could have stewed and reveled in that just a bit longer if the pacing had been different. Overall, 4.25. The cover of this is also stunning. There's also paintings on the inside because Brom does art for his books. So I definitely recommend Slewfoot. And the last 4.25 is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a virtual reality book where our main character lives in a futuristic world where there's like interactive VR, and this old billionaire who invented the VR software died. He put that whoever can solve his like clues gets to inherit the company and all of his wealth. But this like teenager is trying to solve these clues to win them a prize, and all of the clues are based on like old 80s media, movies, video games, all of this stuff. I enjoyed this. There was a lot of like classic game references in it and classic movie references in it, a lot of references to nerd culture in general. I was a little hesitant because I know some people have said that that's kind of like overwhelming, but I had fun with this. It was decently paced in terms of the action versus the puzzle solving, and I did enjoy the characters in this one as well. One of them uses the name Artemis, so I was maybe a little bit biased about that one. But overall, I had a good time with this. If you're into nerd culture, it's going to be a fun time. And I am planning to read the sequel this month, so we'll see if it can keep up the energy. Next up, we have two books at a 4.5 rating. The first is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. In this book, our main character and their partner have bought a house that they're intending to flip, fix it up, sell it. And one day when one of the partner is out for the day, they get a knock at the door, and the partner who's home opens the door, and it's this man and his family. And he's like, I used to live here when I was younger. We're just passing through the state. Can I show my kids your house so I can show them where I grew up? And she like really doesn't want to, but she's like, fine, like 15 minutes at most. And then they just like overstay their welcome. And at the same time, things keep changing. Little things like a tattoo going missing or a hallway that moves. I loved this one. I thought it was really atmospherically scary. There was also a bit of mixed media in here with like police reports and news articles, and a little bit of a coded message in Morse code in there as well. Very much gave me the same feeling as House of Leaves, but without the complicated format. If you have always wanted to read House of Leaves, but you've been a little bit intimidated by it, I would say pick this one up. If you like the feeling of the story, then you can tackle House of Leaves. If you already liked House of Leaves, I highly recommend this as well. It was a really good time. The other 4.25 was Look in the Mirror by Catherine Steadman. This is about a woman whose father has recently died, and she is notified that she has inherited this house on an island. And she's like, my dad didn't say anything about owning a house on the island, and like, where do you even get the money for a house on the island? So she travels to this house and she finds a room in the basement that has a single button. So obviously she presses it and she gets herself in a little bit of trouble. And we also get flashbacks to another woman who was in this house previously as like a babysitter and also pressed the button. So you get kind of two women's stories of their experience of this really freaky house. It has like escape room with deadly consequences feelings to it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good suspense, and also I love stories with like puzzles, so this was definitely something that was up my alley and I really enjoyed. Next, at 4.75, the almost perfect rating, we have two books by the same author. Both of the books are by Brom. The first is Lost Gods. This is one of his older releases. It's about this man who just got out of prison and he goes back, gets his girlfriend, and they are trying to run away from her parents, and they end up going to stay with his grandmother. But what he doesn't know is that his grandmother is a mythological creature who kills him. And he then has to try and traverse through purgatory to find his grandfather, find a key so he can get back. I really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with it. It has Greek mythology feelings to it because as he's traversing purgatory, he's meeting all these different gods and having to struggle to survive against this like legion of rebels in the underworld, and I had a lot of fun with this. The pacing was a little bit off, which is why it got a 4.75, but otherwise I really enjoyed this. It had such a really cool atmospheric feel to it, so definitely recommend that one. And the other Brom that got a 4.75 is Evil in Me. His newest release just came out last month. This is about our main character Ruby, who is on parole, and she has 1 week left. All she has to do is make it through her community service for 1 more week, and then she can finally leave the state and go move with her best friend. And part of her community service is looking after this elderly Jewish man who has this ring in a box, and one day the ring just starts singing to her, and she can't stop herself from breaking into his house in the middle of the night and putting the ring on. The ring contains a demon though, so she gets herself possessed and has to try and figure out how to get unpossessed from this demon while also trying not to break her parole. So I had a lot of fun with this one. There is also like an EP that goes along with it because the main character is in a band and there's a specific song that she has to use and get enough people to sing to break her possession. So definitely recommend checking out the songs by the Maxines and checking out this book because I absolutely love this. Pacing, again, a little slow, took until 50% to really get into it, but absolutely loved it from there. And as with all Broms, there are some really cool paintings in the middle, so if you can read it physically, normally, audiobooks, ebooks, I'm all for, but this one, really, because of those paintings, should be read physically, and I absolutely loved it, so definitely recommend picking this one up. And then we have two books that got 5 stars this month. The first is One Final Brom, and that is The Art of Brom. So this is not a narrative story. This is an art book that has different Brom artworks throughout his career. Before he was an author, he worked for Dungeons & Dragons, making cover art for playbooks. He also worked for TCG Company, I think it was Magic the Gathering. He did concept art for Diablo, all of these things. So it goes through his different periods of art, the different aspects of his career, his inspirations, his childhood, and the art in this was just so absolutely stunning. There were so many where I'm like, that would make a sick ass tattoo when I want it. So if you just want to look at some cool artwork, highly recommend The Art of Brom. Our final book for the month is another entry into my 5-star reads of the year, and it's not by Brandon Sanderson. My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Van Veen. This is a gothic horror book about our main character who helps her mom do fake exorcisms, and while the exorcisms might be fake because she's not actually talking to any of these people's relatives, ghosts are very much real, and she has the ghost of a little girl that has basically attached herself to her and helped her throughout her very abusive childhood. And one day a woman comes in for a seance and it turns out she has a spirit attached to her as well. And so the new woman comes in and offers to like buy her from her mother, and her mother agrees because her mother's a terrible person. Girl is like so worried that the woman who bought her is going to return her to her abusive mother, so she takes some very extreme methods to try and stay in this lady's good graces. This was so good atmospherically. The writing was so beautiful. I loved the characters. It took some unexpected twists. There's discussion of bog bodies, which is always something that's interested me. I absolutely loved this book, and I very highly recommend it if you're into gothic horror or if you want books with sapphic characters. Those are 27 of the 32 books that I read in the month of September. If you want to get the update on those other 5, I recommend subscribing because that video will be coming out very soon. Leave a guitar emoji for Evil in Me in the comments if you made it to the end of this video, or let me know what the best book you read in September was. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.